Welcome to Universal Man. My name is Mark Weppett, and I'm here to help you unleash your apex potential. And today, I want to be talking about the highest ROI, return on investment habit that I can think of. So if you could only build one habit, I think it should be this one. So I'm a fan of good questions. I think a good question can unlock the universe. And as a coach, questions are my toolbox. And whenever I find one, I try to collect it. And so I came across a good one the other day, and it was, if I could only help someone build one habit, what would it be? And it really got me thinking. It really got me thinking about what habits are the ones that give you kind of the highest return on investment. Meditation's up there, maybe some kind of spiritual practice, maybe journaling. I was thinking through all of it. I did an ultimate habit tier list, another video that I did a while ago where I go through a bunch of habits and, I put some in the S tier and I started thinking about them. But really, I think the biggest thing, if we were going to kind of zoom the camera back and condense it down into the most essential habit, I would describe it as centered self-talk. And if we're going to summarize what that means, it means bringing the best of yourself to yourself and doing that with a high degree of frequency. Okay. So here's exactly what that means. I think most guys, they have pretty good, or at least, adequate leadership and friendship abilities. All right. Maybe the average guy is not world class in either one of those, but he knows kind of the basics. Okay. In terms of leadership, most guys know what it takes to pick a direction or have a plan or inspire someone. They know how to offer a kind word of encouragement. They know how to, bring up what's useful, what's not. They know how to, focus on the things that you stand to gain by doing good stuff and, avoiding bad things, right? That's essentially what leadership is. It's helping people find a direction and stay on course. And the basics of it are really, really simple. Most guys have it, okay? In terms of friendship, what does that mean? Oh, it means you can listen to someone. It means you can have fun with someone. It means that you care about someone, right? It means that you can show up to them when they're struggling and help them feel better. It means that, you can, when someone's feeling good, you can help them feel even better, right? It's like between friendship and leadership, that covers what the average person needs, right? And most guys have those abilities. The big tragedy is that they do not often share those abilities with themselves, right? This is something I run into when I'm coaching guys all the time, is they have these kind of internal blocks or, malignant bad thought patterns or bad habits or whatever, and they feel completely blocked on how to deal with that kind of stuff. And, as a coach, my job is to, as much as possible, get them to figure out how to solve the problem on their own. If I just give answers away or just tell people what to do, it's way less powerful than if they come up with their own answer, okay? So what I'll do is I'll say, hey, well, if your friend came to you with this problem, what would you say to them? And then they'd have an answer all of a sudden. It's or if your employee was struggling with this problem and they came to you with it, what would you say to them? And then as soon as I frame it like that, they rattle off a bunch of really good stuff that would 100% apply to the problem that they are currently dealing with. So I say, okay, well, what if you just said that to yourself right now? And they're like, oh, I guess I could do blah, 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 blah. And then the problem tends to start disappearing if it doesn't disappear outright. And so that's what centered self-talk is. It's giving the best of yourself to yourself, being able to tap into your emotions, figure out what the hell's going on, and then address it, right? So sometimes what this looks like is you are going to be helping yourself make decisions. Sometimes it means you're going to be identifying that you have a decision to make. Sometimes it means you got to solve some problems or some logistical issues. Sometimes it means that you're going to be dealing with some negative emotions. You're going to find some sadness, anger, frustration, or whatever, and you have to say, well, what am I going to do about this, right? You got to be present with it. Be like, hey, man, I know this kind of sucks right now. I know you're feeling this, but hey, what if we did something good here? What if we, responded to this to the best of our ability? Sometimes it's going to be just trying to inspire yourself a little bit, give yourself a little bit of hope. Maybe there's nothing you can really do about the issue other than keep your chin up and keep going forward and, hope that it's going to get better. Give yourself that, right? Because if you don't, you're just going to be sitting in despair and despondency and oftentimes dysfunction. And so I think the biggest issue with this kind of stuff is that it's a rather amorphous internal process. Like having a conversation with another person, we all get that. But when you're doing it inside of yourself, it becomes a little bit trickier, right? Because you can get lost in your own, going down your own emotional rabbit holes or getting distracted or whatever. There's not someone else there to keep you on track. And so the big challenge, I think, to developing this skill is not having a clear way to practice it, okay? And so I think there's really two main ways to start building this sort of centered self-talk, because ultimately where we want you to be is to just be able to tune into yourself at any time and just run this stuff in your own head. This is what I do. Anytime I have a down moment, I just tune in with myself, be like, all right, where am I at right now? How am I feeling? What am I doing? What am I up to? And I can kind of clean things up, because sometimes I'll find, I'm actually really frustrated, or I'm getting really tired, or I got this issue that's really gnawing at the back of my head. And it's if you don't check in and you don't process this stuff, well, then you almost always end up acting on some sort of dysfunctional autopilot. So it can lead to escapism, where you just end up trying to tune out everything, run away. It can lead to you making poor decisions. It can lead to relationship issues, all kinds of stuff. If you just don't lead yourself and you're not a friend to yourself, you just end up kind of squishing everything down or trying to barrel ahead, without really reflecting. It's not going to work out well, right? So it's we got to build this habit so that anytime you need to, you tune in, sort stuff out, and then you get back on track. So back to what I was saying about building this habit so that you can do that moment to moment. There's two big ways that I think that you can. One is to have some sort of journaling habit, and I've talked about journaling a lot. And basically you just got to having a notebook there, it tends to help people. It helps to give them a process that they can actually follow. And if you want to get a really structured process on how to do that, a really powerful one, then check out the Metascript method. That's my journaling guide. It's really, really useful for habit change, mindset change, that sort of thing. And it's much more structured than kind of just the free writing style that a lot of people use for journaling. It's not just about recording what happened that day. It's kind of like me taking my coaching practice, distilling it to its essence, and then turning it into a replicable sort of pattern that you can, engage with in your journal. And a lot of guys have used that, wonderfully. But even if you don't want to use that, any kind of journaling where you sit down, you translate your emotions into words, and then you respond to those words, that's centered self-talk. As long as your responses are honest and you try to show up as a leader and a friend. If you just if you open up your emotions and your emotions are just whining and complaining, and then you respond to it by also whining and complaining, then you're not going to get anywhere like that. That would be what I would call uncentered self-talk. And if you don't like to write, well, then get out a voice memo. Get a little voice recorder. Talk to yourself. There's something special about it being recorded. I mean, you can just talk out loud, or you can just do it in your head. But without some kind of real physical anchor to the process, I find most guys tend to get lost, and they tend to drop it much more quickly than if they have some kind of physical medium that they are interacting with. I got a client right now, he much prefers the voice memo stuff. That's great. So go with what you're going to do. And like I said, want more structure, check out the Metascript method. But there is another way too. Some guys, they just don't know how to do it. It's just way too uncomfortable to sit down and to connect with themselves, to talk with themselves. They kind of are at a loss. They're blanking. It's they don't know what to say, what to do, and then they just drop it. And I get that because it's if you haven't been trained on how to do this, it's just an uncomfortable thing in an already abstract sort of process. So you can model this by actually having conversations with other people, having centered conversations, meaning you're bringing the best of yourself, or you have the intentionality of trying to have some improvement or processing occur, and you have conversations with other people about that. So you can do this in a very kind of structured way with a coach. You can do it with a therapist as well, where they're kind of handling, the response aspect, and they're just trying to prod you and get you to expound upon the stuff, and starting there is fantastic, right? But what we're really looking for is we're trying to develop an internal voice, a voice that you can trust, a voice that is aligned to truth and goodness, and that can inspire you, can be compassionate towards you, that can, lift you up, keep you going, that sort of thing. And so like, if there's not enough response, then it can be difficult it can take a long time to build your own voice. I mean, you can that way, just through pure like talk therapy and whatnot. But sometimes, you got to actually get some more feedback from people, and you can internalize, the combination of all of their positive voices. So having a community can be very, very powerful. Having a community that you interact with, day in and day out. This is what I used when I was quitting porn. Is I was plugging into the NoFap community way back when I was like 8 years ago or something like that, 9 years ago when I was quitting porn, and like the thoughts of that community started to get like implanted in my brain to the point where I didn't even need to talk to them anymore. I could just kind of summon up like a simulation of that whole attitude and mentality and goal set, and then use that for myself, for when I was struggling, when I was dealing with cravings and that sort of thing. And so like, I see the value of that. It's massively useful, and that's why one of the main reasons why I built the Vanguard. So if you want our community here talking about the stuff that we're talking about, well then Universal Man Vanguard is for you. If not, there's a lot of other communities out there. So like, talk to people, and as you do that, you'll learn how to talk to yourself. But if you're someone who's just never really talked to anyone about any of your stuff, you're going to struggle. A lot of times I'll have guys come to me in a coaching session and be like, man, I've never talked to anyone about this stuff. And they're kind of stumbling and faltering. And then sometimes it comes out in an avalanche, and then they just like, it's like they're overwhelmed with how much is inside of them. And I get why some people, they just can't go at that solo. And so don't. Just find a way to go at it, right? Because if you do not build this connection with yourself, then you're never going to be the best you that you can. This self-connection, we want it to be kind of running on autopilot. So it's got to happen a lot. You have to practice tuning in to something better, like a better way of thinking, operating, a higher level of positivity, a higher level of hopefulness, all this kind of stuff. It's got to be built. It's got to be like ingrained in your system so that that's just who you are. Otherwise, all this stuff is just going to keep piling up inside of you, and it's going to keep limiting you. You're going to end up making poor decisions, falling into poor patterns, all that kind of stuff. So my big takeaway here is like, you got to connect with yourself, and you got to make space for it, and you got to figure out how you're going to make it practical. Are you going to journal? Are you going to join a community? Are you going to get a coach or a therapist? But like, whatever it is that you need, figure it out and do it. All right. And let me know what you think is best for you. Leave a comment below. Or if you don't want to let me know what you're doing, leave a comment below anyway, because I need to feed the algorithm and comments help. So if you guys like this video, please subscribe. Please think about sharing it with someone if you think, it could help them out. You could leave a comment. Like I said, that'd be really useful. But, big thing here is connect with yourself. All right. And I'll see you in the next one. Ooh, yeah.